Can you hear me?
I can't even see it.
Interesting. Is there like a join?
Oh, it's going live.
Oh, baby.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, guys.
See what time it is here. Wow. Is there like a join?
Would you kill the speakers?
I feel like that.
Cool.
I feel like it's working, right?
Yeah.
Cool. I'm actually in a mad dash to get these last things up, so I'm gonna go
Cool.
to my Photoshop cave. Is open source dash or just you decided to put that there?
Hey, I'm Chris from Awesome Shield. Thanks for coming out. So, Awesome Shield is a platform that helps people learn how to code with Arduino. And in developing this platform, we've spent a ton of time in the Arduino IDE. And so we've really learned a lot about it. And I thought that you guys might be interested in hearing some of the tips that we've picked up along the way. So I'm going to start a screencast now. And I'm going to pull up the Arduino IDE. So you can see here, I've got the current version of the Arduino IDE up, and it's in its default settings. Now, one thing you might notice, especially in this webinar format, is that the font is pretty teeny tiny and can be quite hard to read. We run a lot of events and stuff at Awesome Shield, and we also work collaboratively on code a lot with other people. So one of the things we really like to do is to increase the font size of the font inside your Arduino IDE. And you can do that by opening up Preferences in the Arduino menu, and then going down to Editor Font Size here, and you can boost that up. I'm going to double it and make it 24. OK, and bam, you can see the font is quite a bit bigger. OK, now I'm going to put some code into my sketch. Let's say digital write, and And I'm going to pretend that I forgot a semicolon here, and I know these are empty as well. But what I want to show you is how the Arduino IDE identifies bugs. So if I get it to verify this code, you can see it tries to highlight the line where the bug in the code actually is in red. And you can see this time it's caught the correct line. If I put a semicolon there and I verify it, OK. Now it's complaining because the arguments are empty. So I'm just going to fill those in with zeros. If I verify this code again, should compile. Hopefully it compiles. OK, great. And if I miss a semicolon on the second line and I try to compile again, see, now that there are multiple lines of code, the Arduino IDE sometimes gets confused, and it actually flags the line in red after the line where the error is missing. So this is one thing that we found to be a little bit confusing, and we especially find confuses beginners a lot, is that if you're missing a semicolon, it actually highlights the next line in red. So that's something to watch out for. If you have a problem in your code and you're having a hard time figuring out what it is, maybe check on adjacent lines as well, and your problem might be there. Great. Another thing I want to show you is another really common problem in the Arduino IDE is when you go to upload your code, sometimes the port is not selected. The port doesn't necessarily automatically select when you plug in an Arduino. You might have run into this issue before. I just want to explain a little bit about what it is and what it means and how you can fix it if you ever come across it. So the port is specifying how in your computer your Arduino is actually connected. So you can see the list of names. This one has Bluetooth incoming in it. This has Bluetooth modem. This has a wireless API in it. And then there's a USB modem at the bottom. So normally when you plug in your Arduino, you're going to connect it via a USB cable, especially when you're starting out. So if you notice that your board isn't flashing correctly and it's coming up with an error of port not found, you can go into here, go to port, and then click usually one of the options that has USB modem in it. And you should see in brackets afterwards the type of the Arduino that you're actually using. So in different systems, you may see a list of a bunch of USB ports, and the one with Arduino in brackets after it is the one you need. Cool. I'm going to show you one more quick trick, which is around formatting. So let's say I'm making an if loop. I'm actually going to use the Awesome Shield library to make this sketch a little bit easier to write more quickly. I'm going to say if and awesome, let's say button is down. So this is just a little bit of code that returns a Boolean value of true or false, depending on whether the button is being pressed or not on the Awesome Shield hardware that I've connected to my Arduino. Awesome LED on. So this is a pretty simple if statement, and I'm just going to close out my brackets. Pretty simple if statement, but you might have noticed I have actually added in an extra bracket here. So my closing brackets are no longer matching with all my opening brackets. And in such a simple piece of code, you might spot that really quickly. But as you write more and more code, these kinds of things can get pretty complicated. So what I'm going to show you is something in Sketch, or yeah, in Tools, sorry, called Auto Format, which automatically does all the indentation you need to really quickly visualize which brackets connect to each other using standard formatting. And then once I do that, it's really a lot easier to see that this extra bracket down at the bottom doesn't belong. Great. So I'm going to stop the screen share now and see if anybody has any questions. I'll be here for a few minutes if you do. If you click the Q&A speech bubble off on the left-hand side of the window, you should be able to type in a question. Oh, great. Okay, cool. So I've got a question here from Thomas Lee. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. And the question is, on the Mac, this person uses Windows. Does it give you access denied when having the serial monitor open? I've never got the access denied message specifically. That may be a Windows-specific syntax. I spend most of my time on a Mac, so I haven't actually used the Arduino IDE on Windows a ton. But a problem that I have come across on Arduino, which may be a similar problem or the same problem just worded differently, is that sometimes if you have a serial monitor open, that is using up the serial connection between your Arduino and your laptop. And that's actually the same connection that the laptop uses to flash a sketch onto the Arduino board. So before uploading a sketch, you actually need to close the serial connection sometimes that facilitates the actual uploading. And if you don't close that serial connection, the upload may actually fail. I'm not sure if that is, just going to read some more here. I've been told to close the serial monitor when uploading, but I've found if I keep clicking upload, it will eventually upload. Cool. This is a little bit of a quirk of the Arduino IDE in my experience. Sometimes if you have a serial window open, but there's no data running back and forth, sometimes the Arduino IDE can still flash the Arduino. But a more reliable way of making that happen really fluidly is to just close the serial connection before flashing the board. And by flashing the board, I mean uploading your sketch. Yeah. Thanks for all the questions, Thomas. Do you have any other questions, or does anybody else have any other questions? Just going to give it a minute. Cool. Well, I'm waiting to see if anybody has any other questions. I will tell you a little bit more about Awesome Shield, which is really what got me so deep into the Arduino world. I actually studied engineering chemistry in my undergrad degree, and I ended up working with a few different startups doing some prototyping with Arduino as a platform. And in doing some of this prototyping, I have found that I was writing a lot of the same code, and I was building a lot of the same circuits on breadboards over and over again, just so that I could have some inputs and some outputs and some sensors to play with, just to really simply represent a more complex system that I was building. And so to save myself some time, I soldered up a few of these really simple components onto a proto shield, and I wrote up a library of code that let me write much simpler code, much like the code I was writing in the Arduino IDE in the example sketch, like awesome.led.turnon, instead of handling pin connection variables and digital write and stuff like that. That's the Arduino standard, but I found to be a little bit less semantic. And once I had this simplified hardware and this simplified code, some of the people that I was working with, and I thought that maybe it could be a good educational tool. And so we started teaching people to code with it, and we've been doing that ever since. That was about a year and a half or 2 years ago. So I'll show you the latest version of our hardware, which is here. It's got a light sensor, a potentiometer, a switch, a button, an RGB LED, and those are connected up to pulse width modulation pins, so it can make them fade and make all the colors of the rainbow. And then a piezo buzzer. And these two ports are Grove ports, which work with Seed Studio's Grove components. There are over 150 that you can connect up really easily and plug into the Shield. And we've also, in teaching people, we've been experimenting with different formats, and we've found that one thing that works really well is video tutorials, especially for new coders and especially for kids. And so we've built this video tutorial platform, and we've got this hardware prototype, which is ready for manufacturing. And we've also been working on the code library that lets simplified code work. And we're actually going to launch all of those things on Kickstarter in about a week, next Tuesday. So if you're interested, check it out. I will share a link in a minute. Just going to put that link up now. So this link is in the showcase section, which is a little tab on the left that looks like a pile of tags. And I'm also just going to grab our Facebook page in case you haven't found us on Facebook yet, and share that as well. In the meantime, if you have any more questions, definitely please feel free to share them, and I will be very happy to answer them. Great, so those links should be visible now. So you can check them out if you're interested now or afterwards. I'm just going to jump back into the Q&A panel. Oh, got some more questions. 1 second. Okay, this is a really good question. Is there any way to download whatever code is already on the Arduino? I'm assuming you mean download it back to your computer. There are some tools that will take the code that's on your Arduino and pull it back onto your computer. But the thing is, when your Arduino IDE compiles the code, it actually converts it into an entirely other format that is machine code that the Arduino can understand. So you can get the code back off, but it's a lot of work. And then it's not really human readable unless you're really into understanding machine code. And even then, it can be pretty tough. So the short answer is technically, yes, you can get the code back, but you can't really understand it afterwards. So in practical terms, not really. Cool. Cool. Another question from Thomas is, I really enjoy teaching. Are you looking for other people to write tutorials? We are definitely interested in this. Basically, we are, our core team is building out more tutorials, and we're making them in this really standardized format, and we're designing a whole curriculum so it teaches everything beginners need to know to learn about Arduino. And we're going to keep developing that ourselves, and we'll be looking for other people to contribute to that down the road. But to start, it'll probably be mostly us. However, we're also going to open things up so that other people can contribute projects and can showcase things they've been working on and can make videos that explain how their projects work and teach other people actually how to build those projects themselves. So if you're interested in the short term, that would be an option. And in the longer term, definitely get in touch. Thomas, I will contact you afterwards on Google+, and I will give you my email address in case you want to get in touch with me. Great. Cool. Another question. I'm working on some projects and need to play audio files. Got to work with a simple SD audio library. It does not work with the SD library as well. Do you happen to know how to use the SD library and the simple SD audio library at the same time? Okay. This is a question about a library that I haven't quite worked with yet myself, so I can't answer this question. One thing I will say, though, is that we have some friends at a company called Bear Conductive, and they have a really cool board which has a bunch of, it's Arduino compatible, and it has a bunch of other stuff built into it. One of the things that's built in is actually the ability to play audio, and I believe also an SD card reader to store audio files. So I will post a link to that on our Facebook and Google+ pages after this event, and you can check that out if you're interested. Okay. Cool. So another question is about reading a text file off an SD card to configure something as well as play audio. This definitely is something that I have done. It's hard for me to give advice to you without seeing your code, but if you shoot us your code at the Facebook page or the Google+ page, then I'm really happy to take a look at it and get back to you and answer any questions you have. Cool. And there's one more question here, which is again about the simple SD audio library, which I'm not familiar with, so I'm going to have to skip that one. Cool. You're very welcome, Thomas. Thomas says the questions were a little bit out of order, but thank you very much for answering all of them. And Thomas, you're very, very welcome. Thank you so much for asking so many questions. And it looks like we're out of questions now. I'll be around on social media for the rest of the day if anybody has any follow-up questions. And thank you so much for coming and checking out this webinar. We're definitely going to do more in the future, so stay tuned on social media. Ciao.